Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jordan Cameron back with another update video as we navigate this Bitcoin and cryptocurrency bear market together. Without further ado, we're just going to jump on into the video today because I think we got some interesting things to talk about, kind of what we maybe could expect in the short term here. And we're just going to really do a deep dive of kind of what happened back in 2022 and then what kind of happened after that. And just really look at like the weekly candles, look at sort of our fractal from 2022, and see if there's any, continue to be similarities. And I think there is, right? I think there's still a lot of similarities here. Just to kind of look at where we are in our fractal based on 2022 to start. Obviously, you guys can see that we're right about where we should be, right? We're right about where we should be time-wise. If you kind of match this up, right? We were right about... right over here in 2022. Obviously, you guys can see it was kind of like the last kind of impulsive rally, right, in this sort of kind of relief rally. As depicted over here, we are kind of expecting a relief rally in this range. Right, we're right kind of in that was kind of the last impulse before we actually plummeted down. The question I have right now, sort of in the short term, is how does that all kind of play out, right? Because if we look back over here in 2022, what you'll notice is we did have sort of a bottom come in, and then we had two red candles, and then we had this green impulsive candle, which actually came up, right, and took out that whole range, right? So the question I have right now is, right, obviously right now we're kind of perfectly tracking the 2022 fractal. Do we see in this third candle, right? So we have the bottom candle, we have two red candles. Do we see in this third candle, this actually come up and take out that whole weekly range, right? And actually get up, maybe closer to 73 to 74,000 before actually continuing the 2022 fractal on the way down? That's sort of the question I am asking myself right now. And I think that's definitely a possibility. And it's definitely something to watch out for because I think if that did happen, you guys obviously know like the crypto fear and green index is an extreme fear. I think if you see this weekly candle actually come up, turn green, and you actually get it back above that $71,600 high and actually come up towards like the middle 70Ks, that you're going to see some optimism come back into the market. And not to say that wouldn't be great, right? I would love some optimism to come back in the market, but it's just sort of a warning to say we did see this back over here in 2022, right around this part, right? That's currently in the current part of the fractal we're currently in now, right about here, right, as depicted. We did see that green candle actually shoot up from 29,000 up to 33,000, take out that weekly range. Get everyone excited again just before catapulting, right? Thinking the bottom's in, just before catapulting down and actually having two of the more red, gnarly weeks that Bitcoin's ever seen. From that high in 2 weeks, you actually saw Bitcoin fall about 45%. Do I think we're going to fall 45% again in 3 weeks? No, I don't think we're going to fall 45% in 3 weeks. That would be sort of insane. And just to put that into perspective, say if we did get out to like 74,000 and then we dropped 45%, okay, that would be about $40,000 Bitcoin in 3 weeks. I don't think it happens that fast. So I just want to make that clear. I don't believe that it's going to happen this fast, this next fall. But just keep in mind that we are still perfectly kind of tracking this 2022 fractal. And as always with any fractal, just know that at some point this is not going to work. And right, if we did just kind of continue up here, right, obviously we're going to have to throw this away and we're going to have to look towards some other things, right, like getting back above the 50 moving average band. But as of right now, right, things are still perfectly tracking over here. And just know that this bottom formation most likely is not going to be this bottom formation, right? You're most likely what you're going to have is you're going to have some type of different bottom formation when it does finally bottom. Like this 2022 bottom was obviously much different than this 2019 bottom, which was obviously much different than this 2014 bottom, right? They're all different. They all have their own characteristics, their own personalities, right? And I think that this bear market bottom, right, will have its own personality and its own flavor as well, right? Now, as we kind of go along and, as we kind of just continue to watch to see what's going to happen here, I think one of the big things that we should watch is how Bitcoin reacts to the top of this previous range, right? Because you can actually mark off this range, old range, right, in 2024, right here to right? The bottom of this previous range, which was right about here, right? Before we actually went lower, right? This was all the previous range that we were in. My question would be, I think one thing that I would be watching is if you did see Bitcoin actually get back up and move back above, 74,000, I think there would be some interesting plays, actually a little bit higher, right, for a little bit of a bigger relief rally. But you can see actually the relief rally that I drew was right up to around that 74,000 mark. Just think it makes kind of sense if we did, in fact, get a relief rally back up there. It would not surprise me whatsoever. Just like up here, when it didn't surprise us that it went up to the 50 moving average band, and then we ultimately fell, right? You guys remember the sentiment here, right? Bitcoin's going to the moon, 98,000. Comment section told me dumb because I think Bitcoin's going to go lower. And then Bitcoin plummeted 40% in the span of 3 weeks, right? So I just want to make it clear, just because Bitcoin, if it did get a relief rally to the mid 70,000s, right around that 74,000 mark, do not get caught up in it and do not think that you're going to the moon, right? It easily could do that again where it just falls 40% and we're at 45, 50,000 in 3 weeks again, right? So just make that clear, right? That's happened in the past. So don't get caught up in the mumbo jumbo of kind of where we're at the current moment, which is, okay, we're getting a nice little relief rally. We're kind of expecting that. Nothing too crazy. We're just in a basic range, right? And basically until we see the old range break, really isn't too much to be paying attention to as far as that goes. Now, that leads me into a couple other things, right? Just obviously still just watching the 200-week moving average, 250-week moving average, right? A lot of people like to talk about the 200-week moving average, but just continuously looking at the 250-week moving average and seeing that every single bear market, Bitcoin has had a capitulation below the 250-week moving average. Right now, that stands at about 50. It's kind of flattening out now. It's probably going to stay around the same price for a while. Right now, that's at about 56,000, right? So if this bear market was the same for Bitcoin as it was in every single bear market, you would expect Bitcoin to at least get a capitulation pretty close to that 300-week moving average, which currently sits around 51,000. Once again, that's going to move up every week, though, right, as we kind of go along. The other thing I just want to continuously look at is our stablecoin dominance chart, right? We are still just kind of, going sideways here, right? Going sideways. And ultimately what I think this is ultimately going to be, right? If you guys believe in Elliott wave, right? This is our stablecoin dominance chart. This was a pretty impulsive move off our lows, right? And if this was Wyckoff accumulation, what I would expect is that we have a 5-wave structure here, right? If we actually look at our Elliott wave tool, if I can actually find our Elliott wave, that would be absolutely fantastic, right? Obviously, I believe that the impulse started here, right? This was the first A wave, right? 2, and I think we're going to be working on that 5th wave all the way back to the range highs, right? Because in Elliott wave theory, right? Let me get rid of the SOS. You typically have a move in 3 waves or 5 waves, right? If this is a Wyckoff accumulation, we would expect a very impulsive move to the upside, which usually gives you that 5 waves. So I do believe this is 1, 2, 3. We're working on the 4th wave right now before we ultimately have that 5th and final wave, which gets us probably where Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies will find somewhere near their bear market lows, okay? Which I do not think are in now. I know there's a lot of talk and a lot of speculation and belief that the lows are in. I do not think that is the case. And I will not change my mind based on whatever other people think, right? And a lot of people think it is near the range lows, and I respect that, right? There is a possibility that that could be the case. It's crypto. Anything can really happen. Anything can change on a dime. It likes to throw curveballs. But I like to follow the charts, right? Not follow what I want to happen, which I still got 20% of my crypto in the market. I would love not to lose money on the way down anymore, right? I would love if the market just continued up, right? I mean, that would be fantastic. I would make money if the market just continued up. But being 80% of the market, I also wouldn't mind some deals much, much lower. And that's kind of what I'm going for here. Maybe we don't get it. Maybe we do. But ultimately, I'm going to continue to follow the 4-year cycle, exactly how the 4-year cycle has played out the last 4 times. Which is we expect Bitcoin to go down for 52 weeks, right? And just kind of continue that path lower. Now, one thing I do want to point out is the others chart here. And I think there's some interesting possibilities here with the others chart, right? We are looking at this as a massive head and shoulders pattern, very similar to the Solana chart that we looked at in the last video, right? But ultimately that chart did break down. We haven't seen this completely break down yet, right? But there's two things that I'm watching on this chart, right? Obviously we saw a little bit of a green day, what was it, yesterday on some altcoins, right? 10, 15% gains on some altcoins. That's great, right? But just keep in mind that this could just be a retest, right? And it probably is a bearish retest on this head and shoulders pattern, okay? And ultimately, how could this change? How could we look at this as a possible trend shift? Well, what I would really watch is if we actually just shift to like a 3-hour chart or a 3-day chart. What I would actually watch is for me to be convinced that, okay, this is the bottom on others and we're about to go in some raging bull market, I would at least want to see at the very least a trend shift, right? Let's actually break trend and let's actually start shifting, right? From lower lows and lower highs. Let's actually break out from this downtrend. And then at that point, right, you start breaking out this downtrend, right? You're kind of invalidating the head and shoulders, right? But as of right now, right, we're below, sort of right, kind of where at the neckline is. You could argue this is a bearish retest. We'll see if it continues to be. But ultimately, haven't really gone anywhere on others yet, and still would like, right, a capitulation back down to at least this kind of darker green box here at about $115 billion, okay? Where then we would have some of the biggest opportunities, I think, in crypto coming up. But that's kind of where we're at, guys. I think when I look at this, for me, it's just kind of continuing to follow what we've been following, not getting caught up in the hype of any relief rallies like this relief rally, right? And just realizing, okay, we're in the 52-week bear market. We're going to have relief rallies. Let's not get excited on every single relief rally. Is there long trading opportunities? Absolutely, yeah. You can trade these. You can spot long some of these coins a little bit higher in these relief rallies. But ultimately, right, we're still in a downtrend. And that's kind of the way that we got to continue to look at it, unfortunately, until we see some signs and some evidence that that's not the case anymore, which we don't have at this current moment. All right. So as we kind of go along, what we're going to continue to look at and what we're going to continue to focus on, guys, is obviously the others chart. Can we invalidate this head and shoulders, or will we see that capitulation down finally into this green macro weekly order block, right, down here? Or, right, will we get back above the weekly head and shoulders neckline and then can see some upside in this? For Bitcoin, really just looking at, can we get above 74,000? I think 74,000 is going to be a major level. That probably could be the relief rally high if we do get there. But just continue to watch that, $74,000 area as we kind of go along. But that's really it on the video today, guys. Hope you enjoyed. And what I'm going to be uploading a video over there on the Patreon in just a little bit. So you guys want to join them. I'm going to talk about a lot of the charts that I'm looking at to accumulate, in the next 6 months. All right, if we do get this final capitulation down, what I do plan on accumulating myself, right? Other stuff besides Bitcoin. So we're going to go over those individual charts over there on the Patreon. If you guys want to join that, check that out in the comment section below. Also in the pinned comment in the comment section and also in the description. All right, so catch you guys in the next one. Adios, peace, and have a fantastic night.